how to deal with avoidance of feelings and life experiences when sometimes feelings and life can be so overwhelming and painful. Before we get started, I would just say that I think that Osho chakra breathing meditation, I keep meaning to put that on my website on references. There is a reference page. So Osho chakra breathing meditation can be really good to shift different energies. Also the sound meditation as well from Osho on the chakras. You could do Kundalini yoga, anything that works for the chakras and putting the attention into the body. So my feeling on it is that all feelings are difficult feelings, and repetitive thinking is like a gift to help us expand. And the reason that we're getting stuck on particular feelings, I mean, it's different if you've got OCD maybe, but like OCD thinking, but for the majority of people, the reason that we're getting stuck on feelings is because unresolved issues in our unconscious. So this is separate from non-duality. It's also originally because we identified with the body, but once we're identified with the body, the reason that there's obsessive thinking coming is because of unresolved issues in the subconscious or the unconscious. And we don't know why some people have it worse than others. It could be karma from like what you were born into this life with. That's nobody's karma. It's not saying that anybody's guilty if you've got very difficult unconscious. But it's just something that happens. And sometimes it can be from trauma, so really difficult experiences that you have in life, you get stuck on. And there's so many therapeutic exercises out there, and some work for some people and others work for other people. There can be drugs that work for some people, like medications. There's such a variety. There's no one way to fix it. There's loads of different information and different ways to do things. But I like the chakra meditations. And my favorite way of working with the body-mind, and the way that I do it in my sessions, is that you go into the feeling in the body. So you have repetitive thoughts going on, and you try to identify them. So you try to catch them and see patterns. And everybody will have patterns, and it will just change. So say if you're someone with anxiety, you'll just keep jumping from one thing to the next. It'll be this bill, it will be that phone company, it will be because your neighbors did this, because your neighbors didn't cut a tree down, because this person swore at you in the car, because your ex did that, or da 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 da. It will just, the mind will just keep going on. And the reason that it becomes deceptive is because there's so many different situations you can project on. You can't see what the common denominator is in all of them, and it might be like anxiety or fear that's arising. So you try to identify that, and then once you've identified that, you try to see if you can place it in the body. And if you can't, the chakras actually are really they normally fit a specific rule. So if it's something like fear or anxiety, it tends to be in the root, the sacral, the solar plexus chakra. And you give that energy space. So you're having anxiety, say, about something your neighbor did, that they, I don't know, didn't cut down the trees and it's falling into your garden or breaking your fence or something. and you keep having repetitive anxiety thoughts about them and about what they're going to do and what's going to happen. And then what you do is you pull it into your body, so you see that that's arising in the sacral chakra, for example, and you pull your attention into your body. So the story is going off about the neighbor, and you see you've got anxiety, and it takes some surrender, because you want to maybe blame the neighbor and be like, so you pull that into your being, and you surrender and see, okay, we're just going to give up blaming the neighbor for a moment and see if there's something different, deeper. And often we don't want to give it up, but once you can go deeper and see, okay, there's fear in my body. Do I do this with other situations? And then try to name other situations where you're having these fearful or anxiety thoughts. And then try to take it backwards in time. So try to see, when there was big experiences like that, did you have a terrible experience in your childhood where something really made you afraid? Were your parents experiencing lots of anxiety? Like where was that in your past? How did you learn that? Or when did you first experience it? And there's no resolution. You're not trying to come to a point of getting rid of it. You're just exploring that and understanding it. So then the next time, it's like a process. The next time that you're like the neighbors and you're going off on one, you remember the other day that you sat there and you explored those feelings and you connected it to this deeper place. And you connected it to your past, and then your mind is like, in that situation, it's still wanting to go off on them because this will give you endorphins. It's like an addiction. But you're also like, okay, so it's not necessarily about that situation. There could be some days when I'm not suffering about the neighbor and they're still doing the same thing and they're still there. So then you begin to disconnect from it being about that particular situation. It's not that you don't practically deal with the neighbor, but you begin to see that your mind activity isn't necessarily because of the neighbor. So then you do all of this and you explore all of this. And then when you're ready, when you've really sat with that and you really give it space, you begin to imagine what is it that you would like to experience with your neighbor. And this is like the healing part where you begin to turn the chakra. But you have to do it when you're ready. You can't do it prior to being ready. I know it sounds weird. I can't tell you when you're ready, but you just begin to feel when that chakra is ready to move. And it might, be days and days and weeks and months and years even that you have to allow that to sit there, that fear and anxiety, and explore it. And it will come and go. It might not always be there. But then there'll be a point where you're ready to move it into something positive. So then you ask, what is it that energy wants? So rather than it being about the neighbor, you've got down to the very basics of that fear. And what is it that energy wants? And you might say power, security, strength, love, safety. And you imagine all of that, and you imagine times maybe when you have experienced that, and you imagine evoking that into your life. And it will begin to make the chakra vibrate in the positive. It's not that you want the chakra to always be vibrating in the positive and for you to always be imagining that. It's just helping bring the chakra out of that so it can then rest in neutral. So you're bringing it to the more positive energy. This is quite difficult for people to do, and that's why I think that doing the chakra meditations is also good, because that's a very deep exercise to do. And you'll begin to feel the positive vibration of it. And it's not so much what is it that you want. You can name that you want the neighbor to come around and apologize, but normally there's deeper things than that, you want safety and security and appreciation or love or whatever it is. So it's trying to come back to those basic feelings and allowing that energy, and know that you are allowed that. You are absolutely allowed all those things that you name. And then this is a healing process. This isn't about non-duality. This is just getting the body to a more balanced, healed place. The reason that it's most probably got out of control is because you're identified, but it's just coming back to dealing with that. And then we'll talk about non-duality separately. So all of that done. And then once that's done, once you've been exploring that, you can or at the same time, you can also say that is not who you are, but not as a way to avoid the feeling. like seeing that these feelings arise in freedom, inner freedom. This discomfort arises in freedom. There is something that knows that. There's something that's always present that never leaves. But what is that that never leaves? There's this presence that's always home, no matter what happens. So seeing that, but that's the way that I work with difficulties.